Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're actually going to be talking a little bit more today on how to make yourself successful, especially in retirement. And I love this because you know what? We're all getting there sooner rather than we actually thought, right? So please join me in welcoming Adiel Gorel to our program today. Welcome, Adiel. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. It's a joy to be here with you.
Great. Well, let me tell folks a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Adiel Gorel is one of the leading experts on real estate and real estate investment in the United States and around the world. He is the founder of International Capital Group and author of 5 books, including his Amazon bestseller, Remote Control Retirement Riches. Adiel has lectured or conducted seminars all over the world, including at Stanford, where he is a graduate, Cisco, Meta, Intel, Microsoft, Berkeley, Amazon, and many others. He has also been featured on Fox Business, ABC, NBC, Fortune, Entrepreneur, and is regularly featured in local San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles area media. Adiel even has his own public television real estate show called Remote Control Retirement Riches, which is still airing in its 6th year. His dynamic and entertaining on-stage presence led him to be featured on TedX in 2023, which has been viewed by more than 1 million people. So again, Adiel, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're going to have a great conversation. And one of the things that I always like to ask my guests is, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I can take you through this story. And this whole thing, my background is in high tech. Mm-hmm. I'm an electrical engineer and a computer scientist. Okay. I came to the Bay Area. I was living in Palo Alto, going to graduate school and teaching at the university. Mm-hmm. And then I got my first job in Silicon Valley. Okay. That was quite a long time ago. It was before Google, before Meta, before Amazon.
It's almost before the internet.
Yeah, it's before the dinosaurs used to walk outside my home. Mm-hmm. So, back then, the place that I really was hoping to get a job at was Hewlett-Packard Labs in Palo Alto, which is actually very near the university. And I was living right in between, biking to both places. Mm-hmm. So 2 things happened when I got that first job at HP Labs. Mm-hmm. I was a young guy, and they paid me much more than Stanford, had paid. Just like today, when a young person gets a job at Google, they say, oh, that's a pretty nice salary. So that's how I felt. I felt like I was very well paid. And even though I was very young, in my research lab at HP, there were some people in their 50s and 60s. And I naturally assumed they would be very wealthy because working there for 30, 35 years.
You should save.
Getting paid so incredibly well. They must be wealthy. Now, when I started to know my colleagues socially, I realized that was not the case at all. They owned their own home and a 401k, and that was it. So right away I said, okay, I'm not going to work here for decades to look like that financially.
Right.
I was raised in a family that were real estate developers. As a child, I didn't care what my family did. I just wanted to play. But I couldn't help but get the message so many times about the power, of ownership of real estate. So I said, okay, it's very clear to me. I'm very well paid. I'm young. My expenses are extremely low. I'm single. I'm living in Palo Alto. I'm going to start buying rental homes
Okay.
so that when I get to 50 or 60, I will look completely different because I will have built, an empire that's going to power my wealth. So I started buying rental homes. Now, that was in the 1980s. Yes, of course, I started when I was 6 months old.
Of course,
No,
of course. Maybe a year.
yeah, yeah. I was a toddler. No, but so back in the 1980s, everyone that was buying real estate, rental real estate, was doing it close to home,
Right.
not more than 30 minutes. So I followed the same, convention, and I bought in Silicon Valley. I was in Palo Alto, which is in Silicon Valley, and I bought in places like Sunnyvale, San Jose, Silicon Valley places. After a few rental homes, I realized I couldn't build an empire in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Because although the numbers were much lower in the 1980s than they are now, the ratio between price and rent was pretty much just as bad. In other words, the rents were too low relative to the prices. You couldn't sustain building an empire. So I said, look, I am going to break the convention and go and invest further out in places where the numbers maybe work a little bit better. Now, unfortunately, in the 1980s, we didn't have the web.
Right. So it's hard to do this remotely.
And Sergey Brin and Larry Page were in kindergarten. So I was still working in my lab at Stanford as well. And there they had the ARPANET, which is the precursor to the internet. Very, very awkward way of using it, nothing like we have today, but I still could do some searches. So I discovered if I hopped on a plane and flew from the San Francisco, airport about an hour and a half, I would get to a smaller city by the name Las Vegas.
Ah.
Yeah, it's a name that people sometimes recognize.
Right. And people think, ooh, we want to retire to there.
Yeah, well, so I noticed that in Las Vegas, I could buy rental homes for about 1/4 of the Silicon Valley price.
Right.
But very surprising to me, they rented for something that was very close to 1/2 of the Silicon Valley rent. Well, obviously that was so much better.
Right.
I started flying to Vegas every weekend. Now, I always looked younger than my age, and back then I looked like a boy. And the people in Vegas had never seen anyone buying out of state. Nobody was doing that.
Right. Especially someone who looked like they were 12.
Exactly. So they were sure it was just going to waste their time and were very skeptical of me. So I went to work on something I knew I had to do, finding a local property management firm.
Okay.
Because clearly, if I'm living in California and I'm buying homes in Nevada, I need a local manager.
Right.
So
you need somebody there no matter what.
So I started to, interview property management companies. And after a couple of months, I found one that I really liked. But I was still pretty nervous because I never had a chance to really test them in the field yet. Finally, a local broker took pity on me and said, okay, I'm going to find you home. And I went to work. I started buying. Now, I was always very aggressive. And in my first year in Vegas, I bought 22 homes.
Wow.
Now, before your listeners get impressed by that number,
I am.
Also, okay. And if you also promise not to laugh,
Okay.
I will tell you that the average home I bought in Vegas in my first year cost $39,000 for the whole house.
Okay. That makes sense as to when it was, right?
1980s. Not only that, but back then, Fannie Mae had not yet imposed the 10 loan limit on a person. So there was an unlimited number of loans you could get. And even as an investor, they let me buy homes with only 10% down payment with PMI or private mortgage insurance, which I did because even though I was very well paid, my cash was limited because I was young.
Right.
So 22 homes wasn't hard for, at least financially, it wasn't hard for somebody who makes a good salary in Silicon Valley. Now, during that year, my friends and colleagues in Silicon Valley were absolutely mercilessly decimating me. What are you doing? Nobody buys out of state. You're insane, like that. But after a year, when they saw me with more than 20 homes, the logic of the engineers started working, and they said, you know what? We see what you're doing. In fact, we want to do it too. I said,
Right. Teach us.
No, I said, you should. Go do it. Go do it. It'll change your future. In fact, I said, even if I do nothing else in my life as far as investments, these 22 homes are going to completely change my future. So you guys should go. Do it, please. I recommend it. And they said, come on. You work in Silicon Valley. You know we don't have time to go to the bathroom. Come on. You're already there with your managers and your, how about you lead us? I said, oh, okay, I will. So I led a group of about 20 engineers. And over around 3.5 years, we bought something like 250 homes in Vegas.
Wow.
Not as a group.
Right.
She bought 6 homes for herself. He bought 4 homes for himself. I bought a few more for myself. But I was kind of leading the group.
Right.
And I made a very trivial discovery that even the very cautious engineer who bought just one little home enjoyed the clout, the muscle, if you will, of 250 homes. Why? Because if they were unhappy with the property managers, they would complain to me. And now I'm not happy. And every other manager in Vegas is calling me all the time. Come to us. We are better. We are bigger. We are taller. We are prettier. We are nicer. Who doesn't want to get 250 homes to manage, plus the dozens more we may still buy in the future? I started enjoying it immensely. I felt like I was changing my own financial future, helping my friends change their future. It was fun and dynamic. And because what I was doing was so unusual, I started getting invited to speak about it in various forums.
Word spread.
So here I am speaking in San Francisco to a large group, and unbeknownst to me, there's a reporter for the San Francisco paper in the crowd. So in the Sunday paper, there is an article about me and all of this. That led to the NBC morning news, and I started realizing, you know what, this is too much fun, and I'm changing lives, theirs and mine. I consciously dumped my high-tech life, and that's very hard because you get your degrees and you graduate. So, and I formed our company a little over 40 years ago, I guess, and since then, my investors bought more than 10,000 rental homes.
Wow.
All across the US in about 30 markets. But out of the 10,000, 2,000 were bought by people from overseas, from other countries.
Okay.
And the principle is very much the same, except after a few years, I came to the conclusion that starting out by buying brand new homes is better. Right. And there's an article that I wrote for Investment Magazine, Why Brand New Homes, which I'll be happy to share with you.
Right, and I read about it in your book.
Yeah. So brand new homes, but now we just have markets where we bought 1,000 homes or 2,000. We even have one where we bought a little more than 3,000.
Wow.
But the principle is the same. And still, a new investor coming into the fold uses the same property management firm that 2,000 other houses that we both use, same broker. So clearly they carry the clout. Because that property management firm would really like to please us and please them, even though they just bought one little. So we basically lend them a lot of power. But the principle remains the same. I try to make it very simple because obviously, as you know, Deb, people love to complicate, especially people from Silicon Valley, logical people. Everything is in Excel. Should I go to the bathroom? Let's look at the Excel.
Yes, analyze.
So I try to simplify. And buying brand new homes, I have developed a criteria of where to buy.
Right. Which is
And-
very important, a very important step in this whole process.
Right. I'm a resident of the state of California, the San Francisco Bay Area, one of the most expensive places in the country, obviously not a good place to buy.
Right.
New York State, not a good place to buy for many reasons. So first, it needs to be affordable. But really, most importantly, I've been a student of the demographics in this country for decades. And even if you just look at the census, you can see the demographic trend. The flow goes to the Sun Belt states.
We want to be warm in our retirement.
That and many other considerations as well. So Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I don't invest in the Midwest, not in the North. And now some of the markets where we bought so many thousands of homes have become untenable. For example, our largest market ever is the Phoenix metropolitan area, where we bought more than 3,000 homes.
Right.
But the prices went up faster than the rents, and now it doesn't make
Right.
sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Same for Vegas, you know. But there is one other layer I would like to, introduce into the conversation, and that also answers a question that many people ask me. Wait a second. You're buying a lot of homes. Yeah, I'm still our biggest buyer. So you've been buying so many homes for 40 years. Why the heck are you on this podcast? Why aren't you retired?
Right.
So yeah, the next layer that I introduce will answer this question. When I began investing, I realized that there is an insane, unbelievable gift given in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, only in the United States. That gift is not noticed by the Americans. And the reason it's not is they were born into it. They think it's normal.
Okay.
The only person in the US that knew about this thing and thought about it before I introduced it is Warren Buffett, with whom I was in touch in 2012. And in fact, there's an article in Entrepreneur Magazine about my interaction with him regarding this amazing gift, and he knows about it. Okay, so what's the gift? You know the name of this gift. Everybody knows the name. The name of the gift is the 30-year fixed rate loan.
Yep.
So people say, what? Everybody, come on, that's not okay. I think the best way to demonstrate is what happens when I get invited to speak in Europe. So I speak in Europe. Here come the Europeans to my lecture, and I tell them, my American investors can get a loan called 30 years fixed. And they say, what does it mean?
Right.
And I say, like the name implies, the monthly payment, principal and interest is always fixed, never changes.
Right. Yeah, your
And in
principal
addition to
and
that-
interest adjust, but it's the same amount.
Doesn't keep up with inflation. The other thing is the loan balance, which actually goes down a little bit every month with the principal
Right,
payment,
because you paid off principal.
also doesn't change with inflation. The Europeans give me a very, very harsh reception. I get things like this. With all due respect, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. I can't
Yeah,
believe
why would they do that? Those silly Americans.
I can't believe I drove 100 kilometers to hear you speak. Let me prove to you how silly you are and how wrong you are. And I'm going to prove it to you by logic, they say. Okay, go. So they say, you have inflation in the US, right? Yes. Always, right? Yes. Sometimes lower, sometimes higher, but it's always there. Yes. 40 years ago, you bought a postage stamp for 4 cents. Now it's 72 cents. 40 years ago, you went to the movies in San Francisco for $2. Now it's $15 plus. Yeah. If you go to Whole Foods, you can buy a beautiful organic avocado right now for $3. You know, we know, everybody knows. In 10 years, very likely going to be $5 or $6, right? Right. How is it possible that in this environment, that the cost of everything keeps rising because inflation makes it so that you need more dollars to buy the same goods? you are telling us that there's only one thing in the US economy that never changes while everything else rises all the time? If that were true, inflation would become your very best friend, really eroding the real value of your loan year after year. And you're not going to have to wait for 30 years. Most likely in 10, 12, 14 years, your loan's going to be such a joke, like it barely exists. No lender would be stupid enough to give you a gift like this. But if they were, we would call it the biggest financial gift in the world.
Right.
So then I say, how about you guys do a little search? They search and oh my God, you really have this insanity. The next question is always the same. If the Americans can get such an unbelievable financial gift, why don't they all drop everything they're doing and run out to get as many of those as possible?
Right.
My answer is always the same. I don't know, but I sure did. So now I have a message, and the message is life-changing. And it tells people, open your eyes and see what gift you're getting and use it. And I will help you. And I built an infrastructure nationwide to help myself and my investors. You can join and you can change your life using this gift and the awesome power of inflation coupled with your fixed rate loan, plus the cliche that the tenant is paying it off too. So the tenant is paying off the mortgage while inflation erodes it. So here's an example. This is one example, out of thousands of examples that I have. So here is one of my Silicon Valley people. He started investing in his early 40s, started by buying only one home. Because for him, it was important to see that the property managers really do the heavy lifting.
And might be risk adverse, all sorts of things. So
yeah, he was too busy. So he bought one home. The home got leased out, got stable, got boring even. So then he bought another one. He ended up buying 21 homes. Again, not as impressive as it sounds. At the time that he was buying these homes, in his early 40s, he was buying homes, brand new homes, for about $150,000 each, with a minimum down payment that he could muster.
Right.
Not very hard for a well-paid guy. He calls me up and he says, last year I turned 55. I looked at my 21 homes and I realized, even though I put minimal down payments, so my mortgages started out very high, after 13 years, in my case at least, the mortgages were roughly 1/4 of the value of the home. Very little.
Right.
That's what inflation does to the loan that never moves while everything else moves up.
Right.
So he said, I was ecstatic because over 21 homes, I had millions of dollars in equity. And then I took 5 of the 21 homes and I sold them. I didn't do anything fancy, no tax deferred 1031 exchanges, nothing. Sold 5 homes, paid my tax, and used the proceeds to pay off the remaining small 16 loans.
Right, which that made sense.
And with 16 free and clear homes, I retired from my Silicon Valley job.
Because he's got consistent income.
Thank you. And equity in 21 free and clear homes, millions and millions. Thank you. And then he adds the one sentence that every single investor says in the future, I should have bought more.
Yep.
Even I say that. I bought a lot. So, I mean, this is why I'm not retired, because I have a life-changing message, and it's unbelievable. I could talk to the smartest people, to the doctors, to the lawyers. Not only that, I work with teachers and truck drivers. The affordable homes that we buy, you don't have to be a Silicon Valley guy or a doctor. But I could talk to the smartest people in Silicon Valley and they go, 30 years? What do you mean, 30? Until I explain it, then they get it. So I'm in no mood to retire right now when I can actually change people's future by explaining about this gift and then facilitating it and make it happen.
Right. Well, oh my gosh. I mean, so many questions. One of the first things, I don't even know where to start. Let's start with new properties. See, and I'm going to show you. I read the thing with a new property is it's going to have less maintenance, right? Because it's still got a lot of warranties, all of those things. So, that's obviously a benefit as opposed to buying a 20, 30-year-old house.
There is a benefit, absolutely. And that also for the busy professional. See, the first article that I wrote for Investment Magazine is called The Optimal Investment for the Busy Professional. So we want the busy professional to worry the least amount, let the property managers take care of all the heavy lifting. But if it's a brand new home and everything is under warranty, all the better.
Right.
There is another benefit. When you buy an existing home, you buy it from a seller, Jane Doe, John
Right.
Doe.
Yeah. Whoever's got the property.
All the seller can do is raise the price or lower the price. That's all they can do. But when you buy a brand new home, you're buying it from a builder. And actually, just look around right now, as we're speaking, the inventory that the builders have is large. The demand is very low. The media has scared everybody. So the builders, when they want to be friendly to the buyer, they have so many ways of making it good. For example, right now, they will buy down your rate. Sometimes to as low as we have one market, 4.5%.
Wow.
Yes. So that's one benefit. Builders can also say, okay, you know what? I'm going to throw in the appliance package for free.
Right. The upgraded countertops.
Builders can give you gifts that Jane and Joan and John Doe cannot give you.
Right.
So buying from builders is, to me, a benefit, and buying brand new is a benefit. Why not?
Right.
And in fact, there was something in the Wall Street Journal recently that typically it's thought of that brand new homes from builders will be slightly more expensive than existing homes. Recently, it's turned around. They're cheaper.
Yeah, because you're thinking it's new. It's kind of like a car, right? A brand new car costs more than a used car.
Right. Recently, they're cheaper. Right now, as you and I talk, they're actually cheaper. So, I mean, really, no reason not to buy.
Right. Well, and now granted, there are some people who like a historical property or, all of those various things, but who doesn't want new and shiny? And so there's going to be a bigger demand, which then, this is my assumption, then because there's more demand, you can ask higher rent.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt many would-be tenants like the smell of a new house.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but that is a very little benefit.
Okay.
But it's one of the big benefits nowadays, because the media has scared everybody about the interest rates, and I want to talk about that stuff because there's some stuff to say. They scared everybody that the rates are high. The fact that the builders will actually buy down the rate.
Yeah. I mean, so even if it's high, the builder's going to make it lower and make it much more affordable.
And by the way, the media seems to forget that when the rates go down in the future, you can refinance down.
Right. Yeah. And so one of the questions that I was thinking about is, as I was going through this is, you talk about a person doing this or a couple, and you talk in your book about, one house can finance their children's education, right? Things like that. Is it better to do this as an individual or form like an LLC? Are there tax benefits? Okay.
That's a great question. Now, of course, I'm not a CPA.
Right. And this can change. And so we got all those disclaimers.
Yeah. I'm not a CPA and I'm not an attorney. So I'm really shouldn't, but I have a lot of practical knowledge.
Always check things out first, folks. That's our disclaimer.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, the best 30-year fixed rate loans are the ones given under the Fannie Mae umbrella, and they fondly call them by the nickname Fannie Mae loans. Fannie Mae loans will only be given to a person with a name.
Okay. So not to an LLC.
Not to an LLC, and certainly not to an LLC that was formed on Wednesday morning. Nothing like that.
Right. Yeah, that's not very, that's a little
No.
risky.
So you buy it in your name if you want to get the Fannie Mae loans.
Okay.
There are loans, out there that are non-Fannie Mae loans, and they call them non-qualified, non-QM, whatever.
Okay.
There you could buy as an LLC, no problem. They even have loan programs that don't even care about your own income. They care about the house itself, like a DSCR, model. But, I would say that everybody should maximize the number of Fannie Mae loans they can get. And by the way, a little tip here. I talk to a lot of married couples. And sometimes the one spouse works and makes a salary. The other one also works and makes a salary. Given the lower relative cost of the homes we buy, each one of the spouses can qualify separately.
Right.
Now, Fannie Mae enables a married couple to take the ownership to the home in their name as a couple,
Bob and Sue.
Husband and wife. But they enable them to put only one name on the loan. That makes the maximum become 20.
Right.
Rather
You've
than
doubled
10.
it.
Now, people are listening to me now and saying, what? Who's going to buy 20 homes? Who's going to buy 10 homes? Is this guy dreaming? You'll be surprised. When people start getting in the groove, they buy one home and they see it works. They buy. How quickly do they come to me and say, we are up against the 10 limit. I wish we didn't waste our silver bullets by putting both our spouse's name on the loans.
Right. Now, I would guess that one of the most important things, and you've alluded to this, is you absolutely, positively have to have a good property manager.
That is the heart and soul. And to me, it's not enough to just have a very good property manager. To me, I like to have given them so much business, 100 homes, 1,000 homes, 2,000 homes, that they feel like they really want to listen to me and my company. Hence, Deb listens to me today and says, you know what, I want to buy a house. So I connect you. We talk about the markets. I'll mention them soon. I connect you to the market team. They send you homes. Maybe you go and visit. You buy a home. Now they manage it for you. You have just one home.
Right.
But we bought 2,000 homes in that market. They treat you as if you bought 2,000 homes.
They don't want to lose those 2,000 homes that they're managing because they get a certain percentage.
Plus, there may be hundreds more we may buy in the future.
Right. And obviously this entails a lot of due diligence. And we'll talk about later about how you help with all of that. But you've mentioned this, and I love this thought too, is there are certain states where it is just so much better to do this. I'm from Colorado. We moved from Colorado to Georgia in 2012. So been here 13-ish years. And so many people, when you retire, are you going back to Colorado? No, we can't afford to go back to Colorado. And it's amazing the property values that, have changed there. But so then we're looking at Alabama, right? The states that you mentioned that, and some of them, obviously there's tax ramifications too. Some have lower state taxes, now all sorts of things. And I found it fascinating that one of the states you suggest is Oklahoma, because I think, Oklahoma, but it's a good investment, right?
Absolutely. In fact, in the Oklahoma City market alone, over the past 21 years, we bought a little more than 2,000 homes. And if you look at the map, Oklahoma on a US scale is close to Dallas. The prices are lower than Dallas. The rents are not much lower. The property tax are 250% lower.
Right.
And the vacancy rate is very low, very strong market. The Tulsa market is also strong. So the Tulsa, Oklahoma market, the Oklahoma City market, Mobile, Alabama. Recently, strangely enough, we used to buy in Texas. Even though in Texas the property tax is high, the rent is also high. So,
so it kind of offsets.
Offsets. But the prices in the 4 major metropolitan in Texas went up too much. We stopped buying there for about a decade. Recently, literally in the last 6 months, we brought back Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay.
So now it's part of the stable. I'm already in talk with our teams in Austin and San Antonio. So those may be coming soon too. Then in Florida, the big 4 markets, the Orlando market, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, have gone up too high. But in Central Florida, northeast and south of Orlando, there's still stuff to buy. And the most expensive market we're still buying in is a very respected market, not far from you, actually. It's the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle.
Yeah, up in the triangle.
So the prices, as of today, in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, you can buy homes brand new. This is from the low 200s to the high 200s. In Mobile, Alabama, from the high 200s to the low 300s. In Dallas, Fort Worth, from the low 200s to the low 300s. Central Florida, similar. Raleigh-Durham, from the high 200s to the mid 300s. Yeah. And again, you can put a down payment and all of that. So, I mean, not that difficult to qualify for loans for these homes. You don't need to be a lawyer, a teacher, a Silicon Valley person. Although, a lawyer, a doctor, Silicon Valley. You can be a teacher, you can be a nurse, you can be a... So,
yeah, because we're not talking about investments in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, these are hundreds of thousands, but very few of them.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, these are life changes. Now, one thing I want to make clear, like in my example, the guy retired in 13 years. I noticed over the decades of doing this, the sweet spot where it really starts to change your life is indeed between 12 and 14 years. So this is not a get rich quick, but it will change your life. It will send your kids to college. It will retire you. Even one house will make a difference. But some people buy 2 and 3. I have people who bought 100. I bought hundreds. It doesn't matter. Each one of these homes is a building block.
Right. And we're talking about doing research. And as you were talking about some of the places, my first, now, you talk about the fact that cities are what, this is not rural America. The properties there might be much less expensive, but they're much less desirable for renters. But do you also look at things, because you mentioned Texas, you didn't mention Houston. Is that because of hurricanes? Or is Houston just so much higher? I mean, and New Orleans, places like that.
We bought in all the major 4 metropolitan areas in Texas in the past, and quite a few homes in San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and Dallas. Okay. We have brought Dallas back. Austin and San Antonio may be the next in line. Houston is always more complicated. The zoning laws in Houston are very loose and wide open. Okay. And sometimes that creates some complications in the new home space. Houston, if it does come back, will be the last one to come back.
Okay. But, I'm assuming that, kind of weather and some of those things does play into some of this as to because it's more desirable.
It does. Although, again, even natural disasters, we have 3 types of natural disasters in the United States. The tornado, the hurricane, and the earthquake. Right. Well, and some of them bring floods too, especially, the hurricane.
Yeah, so water's just kind of...
water. So, I mean, the best one, if you can call it best, because nobody wants to have a natural disaster, is the tornado. Right. The tornado is very narrow. It usually hits one street or one block.
And it hits trailer parks.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
No, not necessarily. But I'll give you an example. Between the Oklahoma City market and Dallas, they are both in the corridor in the central U.S. that could have the tornadoes. We bought over 3,500 homes between these 2 homes, 2,000 plus in Oklahoma City and more than 1,500 in Dallas. out of the 3,500 homes, and we've been buying there for well over 20 years, not one home has ever
Right.
been hit by a tornado. None. But if it did, it's well insured.
Right.
So that's the so-called best. The second one is the hurricane. Hurricanes can hit many thousands of homes, not necessarily a direct hit.
Right.
But,
Oh, yeah. I'm in Atlanta, and Helene, I mean, we had 10 inches of rain here.
Exactly. Wind, rain, but still insurance can handle it, at least so far.
Right.
The one that's really by far the worst is the earthquake. Earthquake can be extremely devastating, and the insurance is very poor. The deductible is enormous, and really people could lose out. In fact, I'm getting calls from people in California saying, look, I have a $2.8 million home in the San Francisco Bay area. I live there, and it's most of my wealth. One earthquake and I'm wiped out.
Right.
And there was an article in the San Francisco paper just recently that scientists are saying the Bay Area is due for the next big one, just any moment. So that lady actually said, I'm selling my $2.8 million home, and I'm going to rent, and instead I'll buy many homes in those markets that you talk about.
Right. Yeah, because an earthquake, I mean, obviously those others are very devastating, but the earthquake really damages the infrastructure. So you can't always rebuild. I mean, that's that, and so.
And people try to put a positive spin. They say, you're in California, you're driving home after a long day at work, you're tired. The house will meet you halfway.
Yeah, that's it.
That's trying to, silver lining. No, but I mean, that is a bad. So, one thing, the criteria that I have are very simple. Sunbelt states, large metropolitan areas for job diversity and economic diversity. I like the suburbs, families with kids, the kids go to school.
Right,
it's like a root in the ground.
Central wherever. Blah. Well, you don't have a lot of homes there. You might have apartments and things like that, but not a lot of single family homes.
Right. Brand new homes. And get the 30-year fixed rate loan. So on my TED Talk or my TEDx talk, which by the way is only 11 and a half minutes.
And it's linked to in our show notes.
Oh, good. So in my TEDx talk, I believe I say this. So here are the steps. You buy a brand new home, the suburbs of a large, affordable metropolitan area in the Sunbelt states. You put a relatively small down payment, you get the amazing 30-year fixed rate loan. You let the local property manager lease out the home for you. And then you proceed to do the hardest action for a human being to do. Nothing. Just
you have to be patient.
Let the passage of time guide you to the promised land.
Which is, of course, hard. And so many people are looking for the quick investment. That's why I think, I don't think we see it nearly as much anymore, but the whole fix and flip thing, and that was risky. I mean, I had a neighbor who was doing that, and he was doing really well, and then COVID hit, and it was like, he ended up completely getting out of the business, because he took such a hit so quickly. But all we have to do is look around. I mentioned I'm in Atlanta, so I'm not in Metro Atlanta. I'm outside the Beltway. And going to the grocery store, I go past probably 3 new big developments. And now some of them are, a duplex and a quadplex type of thing, but many of them are multi or single family type of properties, and that's between me and the grocery store, So yeah, it is something that is, and they're buying, all of the property that, and then now granted in Atlanta, there's a lot of, just empty space type of property. But yeah, it's incredible the amount of building that is going on.
Yes, yes. So I would like to actually also talk about what the media has been feeding us for the
Okay.
past
Okay.
few years.
Yeah. The
I
sky
get
is
interviewed.
falling. Danger, danger.
Well, I get interviewed in the media from time
Hmm.
to time, and
Hmm.
my impression in general is many of them are young people who live with a roommate in a rented apartment.
And haven't done their research.
They may not have experience.
Right. Hmm.
So I mean, the universe for a lot of especially younger people is the last few years.
Hmm. Right.
So during COVID,
Hmm.
interest rates went down to the lowest
Hmm.
point in history.
Right.
Homeowners could get loans at
Hmm.
2.5%.
Hmm.
Investors could get loans at three
Hmm.
and a quarter.
Hmm.
And then for various reasons, rates went up
Right.
and now they're at 6.8.
Hmm.
So from the standpoint that this is the universe,
Hmm.
well, it seems very high.
Hmm.
So basically the news has been the rates are very high, meaning the universe has collapsed and exploded. You should do nothing, sit on the sideline, wait until the rates go down, and then act. Now, here is the information from the trenches, what really happened. So,
Right.
during the time when the rates were super low, builders and sellers were suffering from low inventory because of the COVID supply chain
Right. Yeah.
issue. The media was hyping that the rates were very low and we should all go and buy.
Right. Go buy. So
Demand,
that drove inventory down.
demand was very high, supply was low, prices shot up
Right.
like crazy.
Oh, yes. Hmm.
The competition was insane, 20 offers in a week. And then the builders said, you know what, I have so much demand, I can be picky. I don't want to work with investors at all. Only homeowners. So we had to sit on long waiting lists for many months just to get a property to buy. Then the rates went up. So the media again said, oh my God, the universe has died. And you should
The sky is falling again.
Yeah, sky has fallen already. So you should sit on the sidelines. Guess what is really happening? The builders had worked very hard on raising inventory. Now they have very good inventory, but the demand is very low.
Right.
So prices went down. The builders, as I said, ironically, are actually buying down the rate for you and giving you all kinds of gifts and goodies. And by the way, they love investors now. They want to get business. So the time to buy is actually now. And when the rates go down, what's going to happen? The media is going to jump in. Everybody's going to buy. The prices are going to shoot up. The competition. So buy now when it's so easy and nice to buy. Refinance later when it goes down.
Right.
It's so obvious. So hopefully people will do that. Now let's talk about the interest rates.
Okay.
Having done it for 40, this is year 41. Actually, 6.8 is very low. Is a very low rate.
Right.
During the first 20 years of my work, if you told me that you were going to give me a loan at 7.5, I'd be dancing in the street.
Yeah, you would have signed on the dotted line right away.
6.8 is very low. But nevertheless, you can always, so the 30-year loan is not only magical because it never keeps up with inflation, but you can bring it down whenever you want when the rates go down.
Yeah, if you got it a little high, then at some point, it'll drop and you can redo.
When I talk about this thing, after 40 years, there's a little voice in my brain saying, no, this is too good to be true.
It's too easy, too easy.
Too good to be true. But it's true. So, I mean, one thing to remember also, a lot of the people I work with are professionals, sometimes two income families. So the income of the family is the so-called cash flow that feeds the family, the food, and in the first year or 2 or 3. Don't put it on the house. Nowadays, if you get a 6.8 loan and you put a 20% down payment, you're going to be around break-even-ish. Maybe a little positive, maybe a little negative. But of course, as the years go by, the rents keep up with inflation, but the mortgage payment, the PI, doesn't. So it gets more and more. But don't put on the poor house to feed you in year 1. But come year 12, the house could make you retire.
Right. Or like we said, you buy, say you've got 2 kids, buy 2 houses, you've paid for their college.
Let me give you an example about the rates. Remember the 22 homes I bought in Vegas when I started in the first year? Do you know what the interest rates were back then?
Oh, let's see. In the 80s, they would have been 9%. Were they high?
14%.
Oh,
14, 1 4. So all the 22 homes that I bought had 14% rate. And I put only 10% down with PMI. You don't have to be a great mathematician to know every one of them started negative.
right. Oh, yeah. That was just going to happen.
But I could sustain it because I was getting paid well in Silicon Valley. But I also knew, even at 14%, these are fixed rate. The rents will go up with inflation. And of course, when mortgage rates are 14, inflation is high.
Right.
So the rates will go up quickly. In a couple of years, it's going to be break even, then positive, then more positive. Exactly what happened, except within a couple of years, the rates went down to 12. We all refinanced everything to 12. It became positive. And then a couple of years later came the happy day. The media was screaming, single-digit interest rate.
Yep.
We all ran out to refinance to 9.95. What a day that was. And everything became very positive.
Right. Then, then you were everything was happy days, happy days.
So when people talk about 6.8 being so high, I realize I don't need to go to any stand-up comedy anymore because it's funny enough by itself.
Right. Well, and as you said, many people don't remember, or they weren't even alive, right, when those rates were so high. And I mean, just everything that happened around that time period, they look at you and they say, what? And, then you tell them that you used a rotary phone with a cord and they're really lost. But yeah, it's, and everything it's very cyclical. I mean, that's the other thing that people don't really understand is when you look at the economy as a whole, some things are good, some things are bad, and then they adjust. Things like COVID obviously caused some major types of things. We've certainly seen a lot of things in the last couple months. But they all just kind of keep adjusting. And that comes back to what you were saying before. Patience. Just wait. It's I love that you invested initially in Vegas because a lot of gambling is holding. And just saying, nope, no more cards. I'm just going to sit here and wait.
You look at my homes in Texas and you can call them Texas Hold'em.
I love it. Right. But again, I'm thinking, one of the things that people are probably really thinking is this sound. I'm sure you heard a lot. This sounds too good to be true.
Too good to be true. Right. I think when I speak, literally, there's still a voice in my head that, what? No, it's too good.
Right. You're a snake oil salesman.
but these are all facts.
Right.
These are all facts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is they can easily be shown to be true.
It's all facts. It's factual.
Right. So if somebody's saying, okay, I think I want to do this, but it sounds really hard and it's going to cost me a lot of money, what do you tell them?
Okay. I have been working for decades to simplify the process. So we buy brand new homes, makes it a little easier. I have the infrastructure in those markets, local property management firms who manage 1,000 homes for us or more, who really care. Local brokers who have worked with us in some cases for 30 years. And all I do is I connect you to the same broker team who finds me home. They'll find you home. The managers will manage your home. I personally, when I decided not to retire, I had to find balance in my life. So I make music in my home studio, which is in there.
Oh, I love it.
In fact, I was just in LA on a live stage with a band for a couple of nights. It was it was really fun. And then I also have and you can find my music over all platforms. Just look for my name. And then I have a health and wellness podcast, which you can also find on all platforms. Just look for my name. And more than 50% of my time I dedicate to meeting with investors. I'm very passionate about it. So you want to talk to me one-on-one? Contact us. Send us an email. Info at icgre.com. And our staff will call you to set up a meeting with me personally. I'll guide you, I'll listen, just connect you. We try to simplify it to the max. And indeed, you talked about busy people. You mentioned flipping. I have nothing against flipping, but when you're a busy person, you better know what you're doing as far as flipping.
Right.
Flipping is, to me, for the pros, for the professionals. But here you don't have to be a professional. You could be busy in your job, and yet you can accumulate single family homes and build an empire of wealth, of retirement, of sending your kids to college, or all of the above.
Right. And I want to emphasize again that we're not sitting on Zillow trying to find these properties. We're not doing any of that. That's why you have a broker. And we're not saying, now, where am I going to get a renter? And what happens if the refrigerator goes out at midnight? That's why you have a property manager. I am sure there are some people who say, they want to do it themselves. Okay. But
to
why?
Me, that would not be particularly great. One thing I think I say on my TEDx talk is I own a very large number of homes because I lead by example.
Right.
And I believe I say, if I were managing my own homes, I wouldn't be on stage speaking to you now.
Because
I'd
you'd
probably be fixing a toilet at this very moment.
Right.
I'm not willing to. I want to have the benefits, but I don't want to. I use property management.
Right. Yeah. I have a family member who he's got a lot of properties and he has always done them himself. And, the worst invention in the world for him was a cell phone, right? Because that meant people could reach him 24/7. And if your property is flooding or some emergency, it can't be, well, I'm busy. I know.
The property manager takes care of it. Yes, they get paid, but I pay it lovingly. Let me give you an analogy. I could clean my own home. I could. Right. I can't guarantee I do a great job, but I can do it. Do I do it? No. I pay people who know better than me how to clean my home.
Right.
They clean it, I pay them, and I have time to be here with you.
Right.
I pay the property manager, and I have time to be with my kids, to make my music, to have my podcast, to walk outside, to hike, to bike, to travel. Come on. It's quality of life.
Right. Well, and I tell business people, you need to outsource as much as you can. I got all fuzzy all of a sudden in the video. That's why the VA market is going like crazy, right? Because same concept. Why should I do my own bookkeeping when I can have somebody else do it? My producer for this podcast, we've been together, 5, maybe 6 years. She's a VA. We've never met in person. She lives in New Jersey. But yeah, she does all of those things that need to be done. Could I do them? Yes. I used to do them. And then I got smart. And am I giving money to somebody else? Yes. But it frees me up to either be doing something else to make money or be doing something to have fun or maybe taking a nap. Whatever it is, there's reasons to be doing that.
I could not agree more. So when I started out, up to the first 30 or 40 houses, I did all of it myself. I wasn't even using QuickBooks. I was using Quicken, which is like a checkbook.
Oh, yes. Does that even exist still?
I don't know. But when I exceeded 40, I started using, a part-time bookkeeper.
Right.
Today, at the volume of homes, I have a full-time bookkeeper on a salary, but that takes me out of the loop.
Right.
In a good way. In a good way.
Right. You still review it. You still know what's going on, but you are not doing the cleaning of the house.
And instead, I can be here with you. That's a lot more fun for me.
Right. Well, it's fun for me too. Well, oh my gosh, Adiel, it's been an hour. Can you believe that? We have had such a great discussion. But for the people who are going, okay, I'm in, or at least I need more information, how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Okay. Our website is icgre.com. Just go there. On the website, you can set up a meeting with me, one-on-one with me, not with any of my staff, with me. And also you can send us an email. As I said, info@icgre.com. Also, for the past 40 years, we have a big event once a quarter. I bring all the relevant market teams. They show us their PowerPoint. They explain about the market. They meet with us. They show us properties. I take lots of questions. I bring lawyers and CPAs and experts. Used to be a live event. Since COVID, we moved it to Zoom. We shortened it to 4 hours. The last
Perfect.
event was on May the 17th. Our next event is on September 6th.
Okay.
Everyone's invited for free, lots of information. So you can join the event on our website, icgre.com, under, of course, events.
Perfect.
And you'll get an invitation to, if you send us an email and talk to me. I will connect you to the right markets. You'll work with them and we'll get you on your way. I recommend very heavily, everyone should start with just one home. Sometimes I get calls from Silicon Valley. I just sold a company. I want to buy 100 homes.
So,
I said,
yeah.
how about you buy one? How about you buy one?
Make
buy
sure
one
this is going to
home,
work for you.
One home, see it leased up, see it get boring. Then home number 2 is just a repetition of the same thing. Home number 4 is already boring. Almost.
I was on your website and you started talking to me. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, just like we have to be patient when you're starting also, folks. Yeah, it sounds good, but it's okay to start small. You can add to it. Well, Adiel, this really has been so much fun, and I would love to talk with you again. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yes. The United States happens to be maybe the only place in the world where you get the biggest financial gift called a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I advise you very much to use it in an easy way, painless way, even though you're busy, by getting brand new rental homes in affordable, good markets. We will help you, but don't sit on the sidelines. Use it, use the gift, and it will change your future.
Oh my gosh. So much fun and so very interesting. I'm Deb Creer. I've been talking with Adiel Gorel of International Capital Group. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.